Got another entirely too large haul of science fiction books. Science fiction, for the most part, some fantasy. Book one, I think I got this at a thrift store. It is The Boat of a Million Years by Paul Anderson. This is a big, thick book about immortal human beings that live on a spaceship and fly around in the spaceship and do spaceshipy things. Paul Anderson, you know, I'm a broken record on this. I don't want to portray myself as like an expert in science fiction because there's so much of it that I have not read, including a lot of the big names like Paul Anderson. So I've said a few times on these videos that I don't care for Robert Heinlein, which you guys just absolutely love. But I got this vintage copy of Number of the Beast. Big, thick book because it looks cool.
You don't like Heinlein. You, unsubscribe. You don't like Heinlein.
The Golden Queen by Dave Wolverton, which is the rare fantasy book pickup for me, but I'm almost done with On My Way to Paradise by Wolverton, which I'll be reviewing, which is a great book. Jack Williamson's The Black Sun. So Williamson did not publish that many novels, to my knowledge. I had the best of paperback that's sold on my Etsy shop. Not familiar with this, but it was $2.50 and the cover is really good. I got this from a thrift store. This is a very vintage, perhaps antiquarian, because antique books are not antique books, they're antiquarian. It's an antiquarian and busted aquarian copy of The Modern Library, Complete Essays of Emerson, which I thought was cool. Also from a thrift store, Arthur C. Clarke's Earthlight. It's from 1966, this copy. Isaac Asimov's Forward to the Foundation. I don't think that I have this one. I am missing the first Foundation, and after I get that, I should have the entire series. Piers Anthony's On a Pale Horse. Book one of Incantations of Immortality. I think this is one of his better known works. Anthony hated by many. The one book I read, I kind of liked. Got this UK binding in paperback of Greg Egan's Shield's Ladder. It looks like an Alistair Reynolds book. Egan recommended to me a lot, and another one that I've not read. If you hear a saw in the background, I apologize. This is the one window of time that I have to shoot this video, and somebody's sawing stuff. For $5 I got this. It's Roald Dahl's My Uncle Oswald. And you might be thinking, I've never heard of that Roald Dahl book. What delightful child's tale is this? And it is actually a collection of erotic stories written by Roald Dahl. Dahl had a not very well-known run of adult-oriented books. I have one of his other ones in this genre called Switch Bitch. So here's a run of Le Guin, Tombs of Atuan in the Earthsea series, and Farthest Shore in the same series, definitely vintage. And then I have A Wizard of Earthsea by Le Guin in this different binding, and The Tombs, and Tahanu, which I think is Earthsea. Yeah, last book of Earthsea. So somewhere in here, I think I have the whole Earthsea series. I have to figure out what's missing, if anything. This old Del Rey Best of Eric Frank Russell, intro by Alan Dean Foster, book that's in pretty bad condition. It's all water damaged and spines creased. Death World Trilogy by Harry Harrison. Look at this cover. Looks like post-apocalyptic military sci-fi. I will take it. A hard copy of Frank Herbert's The White Plague. Looks like it might be a first edition, 1982. Got another Silverberg, Son of Man. This big trade paperback from the bookstore down the street from me because I had some credit left over from flipping books there. Son of Man is one of his earliest, if not his earliest, novel, full-length novel. Very psychedelic. I read a short story that was set in this universe, and it's one of the weirdest pieces of sci-fi I've ever read. I don't think people really liked it a whole lot. I think it's kind of an acquired taste, but I've always been curious about it, and I found it. Got this actually for my birthday from my dad, Alternate Worlds, The Illustrated History of Science Fiction by James Gunn, intro by Asimov. And I think it's mostly the early stuff up through the 50s and not much beyond it, but been curious to read something like this. The rest of this is going to be available on my Etsy shop, so I have a link in the description to my Etsy. All the books are priced so that when you buy it, I make about $5 in profit after all the fees and the shipping. Bloodland by William Johnstone. Incredible cover. Rebellion in America's Heartland was only a heartbeat away. Bloodland. Got that for $2.50. This cover is just simply so good. You have David Carradine here, surrounded by some Jedis. There's a spaceship. Kensho, it's, I think, a Japanese sci-fi setting. It is a little bit water damaged, but couldn't pass on it. Vintage first edition fantasy paperback, Hands of Glory by John Kangalasky. I have 4 in Alan Dean Foster's Star Trek Log series. Log 1, Log 2, Log 3, and Log 4. They're not in perfect condition, but I didn't know that he did these. That's pretty cool. Alan Dean Foster did a lot of novel tie-ins of like movies and TV shows. Another copy of Tombs of Atuan by Ursula K. Le Guin in this binding here. A copy of John Scalzi's Red Shirts, which is something I already own. Really good shape. Pretty beloved book. Definitely vintage copy of The Farthest Star by Frederick Pohl and Jack Williamson. Another Williamson. Same guy that did that Jack Williamson book from earlier. A 2020 version of The Wizard of Oz. Introduced by Judy Bloom. Really like the binding. This awesome vintage horror, Black Plumes. There's a vintage Western, McClintock. I think it's a novelization of a John Wayne movie. He's doing something frowned upon on the cover. Copy of H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness. This is the same copy that I read. I don't know if I still have it anymore, but this is the same binding that I used to own at least. Really like the cover art on this stuff. Spider Robinson's The Callahan Touch. I keep finding these Callahan saloon books. I just haven't found the first one. Pretty cool binding from the early 90s. Really good condition on this one. I think I'm actually going to keep this one. I don't think I listed it. It's The World Next Door by Brad Ferguson. A totally forgotten sci-fi book about alternate dimensions. There's like a war between our dimension and an overlapping dimension. Looks pretty cool. And then finally, The Players of Gore by John Norman, this pulp DAW fantasy book. The Gore series is pretty expansive. Did it come before or after Conan? So if you liked any of those books and you feel like flipping me $5, take home a book. All right, thanks for watching, guys.